welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. I get to speak with Emily Quandt today, whom I've known for a few years, and we actually did a podcast episode a few years back. She is launching this month a support program for unschooling communities. If you don't know what unschooling is yet, we will get to that. So she's going to help these communities build themselves and help them to thrive and continue to exist. It is called The System, and she will be also launching a podcast, which is where all of the support for this program is going to exist. She is the oldest girl of 8 children, the mother of 2 unschoolers herself, and she is the co-founder of an organization called Free to Learn, which was founded in 2016. So it's been going on for a good many years now. All right, well, let's get into this and welcome Emily.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back.
Yeah.
So you got into, well, we met through the Joshua community, and we discovered that we both were unschooling mamas. So that was fun. And the reason I knew that was because actually your Zoom title was Free to Learn. And I was like, I read that book. Does that have anything to do with, yeah.
It does, yeah. We actually got the name of Free to Learn separate from the book. We just, it organically was like, that was the only thing that it could be. So, but Free to Learn was my first intro to unschooling in community. So it was very apropos, even though it came in different circumstances.
That's so cool. Yeah, I just recently learned that I thought I had coined the term emotional fluency, which I totally didn't, but I came up with it independently of the other thing. Yeah. What's funny about that book, actually, for me, and that's like so crazy synchronistic, is that the writer of that book, Peter Gray, was married to someone who was in my spiritual community who would come to this yearly event each year. So my ex-husband knew that kid that was in the book because he used to do the high school camp or the teen camp.
Wow.
Yeah. So crazy.
Small world.
Yeah. So, but what I'm really intrigued by what you do, because it is different from what I do. I don't have like a community that I unschool with, and you do, and I love community. So
it's so magical. Once you have community, you get so addicted to it that you can't ever go back. We went to smaller pods during COVID, and yeah, everybody is just gets to be chomping at the bit. We got to get back. We got to do it more. And then the kids always want more and more time. You can never have enough time. So yeah, doing it in community is a whole different thing that is just magical. It unlocks all of these extra venues, right? Of like, there's so many things that you do just because you're in relationship with someone, and especially with kids, right? The 12-year-old is working on crocheting, and a 5-year-old would not necessarily want to do that, except that they absolutely love this 12-year-old. And so he's just going to be sitting with the 12-year-old and watching. And then eventually he's like, hey, I want to do, give me my own hook. I want to do that. So there's a huge opportunity bank that opens up when you scaffold the ages and put everybody together, everybody is interested in their own things. And then everybody else is interested because those people are interested. So it's really phenomenal.
How does that work? Like logistically, I'm wondering, because because my framework for co-op, I guess, which is sort of a community for co-op and homeschool, was like, we would sign up for the movement class or the writing class or the Minecraft class or whatever. And then you'd take your kid, it was a specific hour, whatever. My kids hated this because they don't want to sign up for a class where some adult is telling them what to do, which is like why I unschool me. So, I would love to bring them to a place where they're just free to learn, free to play, free to like do whatever with other kids. I have not found that.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty cool. What happens is you bring your kids, and to begin with, right, they don't know anyone yet, and they're just kind of getting the lay of the land, and they're not sure, what the structure is really going to be. There's a bunch of unknowns when you go into any situation, and kids experience all of those, right? But when you let them self-direct, then they are going to actually, like, typically they'll cocoon away for a little bit, and just observe and get comfortable in the situation. So if you're going in, even for an unschooling community where you have offerings available, they still are not able to just have a nothing space where they're getting the lay of the land, where they're like listening to these people converse over here and these people converse over here, and feeling out like, oh, this is probably like, I can insert a sentence over here, but I'm definitely not going to be playing in, just their natural space to express themselves, like where they're going to fit in. So when you have community where you can just come all day, every day, you just pop in, and you see all of the offerings, right? We have an offerings board. We set our days in the morning and go over everything that's available. And then we, check in who wants to do anything else, and we add those things on. And then you don't have to do any of those things, right? You can just be in the space together with everyone else. You can say that you want to do them, but when the time comes to do them, you're not, you're deeply engrossed in your Lego project and totally don't want to do it anymore. So that's totally okay. Or you can do something completely different. Like, okay, I wanted to do these things. I had a bunch of things that I was going to do, but instead I was up super late because my cousins were over. And so I just took a nap all day. So all of those are completely valid options to do. And it really makes a big difference of like, no, you don't have to sign up for all the things that you talked about being interested in. You can just do whatever you want, which is pretty much the epitome of self-direction.
Right. And when you say you're just there all day, so like, I think I know from speaking to you in the past that it is sort of like a school, and that it has like operating hours.
It is, yeah. So we've always had before care, which is offered. One of the facilitators might come in early in the event for like working parents that need to leave them a little bit early, and then we just have regular school hours from 9:30 to 3:30 or whatever the year entails. And then we have had aftercare as well to facilitate that same thing with the parents. And yeah, I mean, everybody wants to stay as long as possible. So they definitely need at least a school day's worth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's really
And even that, I mean, if you go from 9:30 to 3:30, it's never enough time. It feels like everybody has so many things they want to be doing, and there's just never enough time.
that sounds different from my experience of school.
Yeah. Right? It really is. But actually they get, as adults, when we're going through our days and we have so many things that we're pretty excited to do, right? It does feel, we get into that, like, I have so many experiences that I want to experience in this day. It feels almost like, ugh, I didn't get to experience everything. And so
I know, because days seem so short.
yeah. So we do that. We find the kids doing that, a similar thing of like, wait, the day's over. Oh no.
Right.
Yeah. It's great because that's what you want, right? Like that's truly what learning and engaging with life is like. You always, if you're in a space where you want more of your life, that's the best possible situation that you can have.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So do parents sign up for like a year kind of thing with, yeah?
Yeah, it's a regular enrollment like you would do with any school. We've had a bunch of things with the parents and enrollment and everything. We are an Agile learning community, and so everything is actually Agile. So it's all flexible to work with everyone, right? So if we know, like, you're here in the fall and you're going to be moving in February, then that's the period of your enrollment. So we've done every kind of different thing. But yeah, it's definitely a fall to spring regular school year. We start, just because we're used to it, we always do our years old school fashion, where we start after Labor Day and end right before Memorial Day. So yeah, we love that. The kids are like, why is summer so long? But we do a lot of like day camps and trainings, and so we do have opportunity to get together. And then if enough kids want to do it, we can run summer programs as well. So if it works for families, we do just find that families are often doing other explorations like out of town and whatnot. So yeah, there's tons of options.
Right. Yeah. We seem to be traveling quite a bit. So, yeah, being involved in like ongoing activities is always a little bit challenging.
Yeah, which works too, right? We've had several different families who are in and out. We had one that was in the process of moving to Texas for like several years. And so we're in California, and they were like doing this back and forth as they're building their business and getting everything ready there. But everybody's home base is still here. So, it was we just scheduled out like which are the weeks that you're going to be here, which are not. For staffing, if it is important for those kind of things. It's really just keeping in touch with each other and making it work.
Yeah. How many people do you have, or like kids do you have?
So we've had anywhere from 7 to 35.
Oh, that's a big span.
Yeah. And I mean, the more the merrier. You just want a lot of kids. We definitely want to have, you want to build it as much as you can. So there's so much life that comes with every individual child that enters that you never really want it to be. Basically, it'll have a cap of like 150 staff and kids, because that's like in your circle, in a community, you can only remember that many names. First names, like once you pass over that, you won't be able to keep track of everybody's first name. But yeah, pretty much you want to have as many as you can, as many as your space can fit, for sure.
Yeah. So where did the idea for creating the system come from?
So I am a West Coast Agile trainer. So we started hosting trainings just because we wanted them for ourselves at Free to Learn right away. So we had our first training before we were even open full 3 months, and hosted it at our location. And then now I am a trainer, and I just facilitate facilitators, right? So
can I just ask you before what is agile learning? Is that the same thing as unschooling, or is it different?
It is, yes, it's just a model to facilitate unschooling. It's like a framework that you build in order to keep everybody safe and make agreements with each other and like keep the flow of your days going. And it's based in the actual Agile model, which comes from computer software.
You told me about this before.
Yeah.
It's still coming back. Okay, but
yeah. Yeah, so it's real simple. It's just to get a piece of computer software from out of somebody's head into a product that we can hold in our hand and or have on our desk. So it's all the steps broken down so easily that really a 5-year-old can manage the whole process. And also different levels of communication. Like some people like me, if I go into a meeting and it's supposed to be like open for everyone, there's going to be a lot of people who just see my mouth yapping, and they're like, she never really stopped talking, so I never said my thing, right? This model makes sure that the playing field is leveled so that a 5-year-old has the same voice as everyone else in the whole system, including me. So, and it also flattens it. So there isn't really a pyramid. There isn't a hierarchy of who is in charge. It just evens everything out. So we're just facilitating the kids being present and doing what they want to do, basically. But that agile model is the model in which it really flourishes pretty well.
Okay. Okay.
And it's also really easy to pass on. So it's very visible. It doesn't take, it's like a lifelong learning process to implement it, but it's very easy to just pass it on to a new facilitator, pass it on to a new family, pass it on to the kids. It really doesn't take very long to just get into the swing of it and really use it. So that's what we use.
Gotcha. Okay. Is that something that you use in your home as well?
Yeah, everybody uses it.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. We use it in our relationships. We use it like with our spouses. We use it with our siblings. Like, it's a phenomenal tool to use in everyday life. So yeah, we definitely are crazy about using it. There's not been any family who hasn't implemented it in their home once they learned it.
Okay, so getting back to the system.
Yeah. So basically, I was doing all this coaching of families, and I was getting all these calls because I'm, somebody to call on the West Coast who has a thriving community. People would call me and be like, "Oh my gosh, I really want what you have, but I can't move to you. How do I do this?" And to be honest, this just magically happened for us. We just were super aligned, I guess, because it was amazing. So when we started, we had 4 incredible women on our team, right? We had, plus 2 others. There were 2 others who started it. One had already started a Sudbury, one who was amazing at building community, right? So there you go. So that was like the very beginning. The birthing of it was like we had access to these incredible humans who could kind of cast the vision for us. And then when we got into the nitty gritty, we have these 4 other people. Like, one is a ridiculous quality control person for engineering plans for airplanes. 15-year-old.
For those of you who can't see the video, we've so far seen a cat and then what would you call that?
A creeper
dance.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we had these incredible women to put together our team. Like, we had somebody who had 95 franchises that she was involved in for her personal business. And then we had somebody who was just like magical with spending time with kids and like drawing out their amazingness. And then I am both an administrator and kind of a community builder. And I definitely got my 10,000 hours in on being able to work with kids without any authority. Because when I was a kid, I was the oldest of all those kids, and a bunch of cousins. There's like a passel of kids that I was always like at the top of, but I didn't have any authority. So I had to figure out how to level the playing field and still like accomplish stuff. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that is basically, there's a bunch of stuff about kids and how to let them be in freedom that I know, and I don't know how I know it. I just learned it being the oldest kid of this passel of other kids.
Okay, you've said that word twice now. I've never heard it before. Passel?
Passel?
Yeah.
It's like a group.
Wow, that's a cool word. Thank you. Yeah.
I think my grandpa used to use it. Yeah. Well, okay. And it's always been used in my family because there's like, I'm one of 8. I had 7 cousins in another group. I had 5 cousins in another group. And then we had this church, which was our community then, of like 6 kids, 5 kids, 4 kids. Like, it was just a massive kid group. There was kids everywhere. And I was oftentimes at the top of that passel. Yeah. So anyway, the people would be calling me all the time and asking me, hey, we want to do the same thing. How do we do it? And I basically had to tell them, like, you're screwed. Like, unless you have like some sort of a miracle team, right? Like there's this alchemy that was happening here. Yeah, it was ridiculous. So, if you're just one family in your space and there's a bunch of people who are like somewhat maybe interested, like we're dabbling in unschooling, but we're also like world schooling a little bit or whatever everybody's doing, or we're just homeschooling, but maybe we want something a little different. Like without the alchemy of all these magical people, it's really hard for me to like, sure, you can do this. So even 3 months into what we were doing with Free to Learn, we had that first training, and people were there wanting to do the same thing. Like people came from all over California and wanted to do the same thing where they were. And it's possible, but the amount of force that it takes is a little ridiculous. So it's challenging. Anyway, and I've been fielding those calls since then, coaching people. I'm getting those calls and be like, yeah, that's going to be a challenge. And so I'm not in love with people resourcing me for help and not having something to give them. So that is where it was born of, is like, I started just visioning, like, I really want to be able to provide this for anyone, even just a single mom who is just herself and her one child. They should be able to somehow build this thing up. And so I've just been rewriting and like running into problems, and for our community, we've like lived out quite a few of the troubles that you will encounter in a community like this. And so just kind of taking note and making sure that all those bases were covered. So the Agile model covers a ton of bases, but there's the situation of, and Agile, the network, it's a global network. You join the network and then you get just a massive amount of support, which is really helpful. But there was always the financial piece of, really, you need a bit of cash, because if you're say a single mom with just your son, you've got an 8-year-old son and you want this, you're going to also need a tax preparer, and you're going to need somebody to write your paperwork, to get your nonprofit, and you're going to need somebody to facilitate your 8-year-old unschooler while you are providing for him, right? You're going to need money to pay that person. So there's like so many things that the whole house kind of crumbles without finances behind it. So the missing piece was really putting in that financial piece, so that everyone has the ability to come into the school with like pretty much 15 grand each. Like for every kid, we really need, I think California has come, and most of the states have really come upon something real, in that the budgets for education for a year in a child's life is about $15,000.
Wow, a year? That's how much invested in each child?
Yeah, that's how much the state spends about.
And that's only if you're going to public school. It's not like you get that if you're homeschooling it.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So, and that's to pay for like the administration and all the paperwork and all the like employment taxes and their QuickBooks subscription. Like there's a huge amount. So from running this for all these years, like we've calculated it, and really, if you want to pay your facilitators a living wage, like you really do have to have a fair chunk of money per kid. And then also you want kind of an intimate situation where there are enough facilitators, like a good solid community of adults in with the solid community of children, right? So you want to have this spread of age mixing, and at some point those people are also going to need to live, and so you have to pay them. So yeah, that's about what it costs. So the system is just like putting all the pieces together. Okay, what do we have here? What do we have there? And then this last piece that we just figured out is the financial piece, so that every family can come in and bring in that income. It's not a strain to the family. yeah, so you can bring your kid and build your community, and but then also, if we go back to our single mom, she starts doing this, she's building this now. As that money comes in, right, it's going to work up from 0 to the 15,000, but as it works up, she's going to now be paying a facilitator to come in and facilitate, and it's very easy to bring in more families in that way, right? And then yeah, it just builds on itself.
Okay.
Mhm.
So in this scenario, the mother is not being there all day with the kid because we're assuming that she's has another job. So this is like in
So any mother who that is their passion, it's more than welcome to do that,
hmm,
right? So that's fine. But what we've found is, first off, we don't facilitate our own children in our schools, right?
oh,
Like, so if my kids need something like comfort, they fell and they're wounded and they need to be comforted, then that's for sure something that I will be on top of.
uh,
But there's a bunch of like learning how to be with people, conflict resolution, just like, can you help me with my lunch, right? And if I packed your lunch and I have told you like 1,000 times already how to facilitate your lunch, I'm going to come to you with your request of how to help you with your lunch in a really different way than a new person who's like, hi, I haven't seen you since yesterday at 3. Like, we have no problems. So
mhm.
we really don't, except for comfort and like some fun things, we really don't encourage the parents to be facilitating their own kids. There's just a huge amount of baggage that we bring into our relationships that we
Hmm,
really don't need.
hmm, interesting.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
sort of help would a kid need with their lunch?
Oh, like heating it up, right? They brought
Oh,
their lunch.
gotcha.
Yeah, and it's in the fridge and it's something that's supposed to be warm, and they just need to figure out how to use the microwave. Right? So it's not a huge thing or whatever. But yeah, there's a ton of little things like that where you get like this little trickle of parentness happening,
Mm,
that we're not really looking for another parent relationship. We're looking for just a supportive adult.
yeah, that's so funny. That makes so much sense. I basically let my kids just sort of have their day. I mean, we have outings and things like that, but sometimes there's just chill days and it's like, all right, I'll see you at lunch. But the one thing that I am always called for is, well, either spelling something or I'm hungry. So
Yes.
I feel like somebody else could do that.
Very easily, right?
Yeah.
And it for us as parents too, like just packing up a lunch and having it in the fridge for them to grab in the mornings as we go out the door is way easier and doesn't take any of our mind. Or we teach them how to pack their own lunches or whatever. But then when we get into facilitating that at school, it's just a different thing. And some parents can navigate it, but it's challenging. Then there's always like rough spots in there.
Okay.
Just not facilitating your own children is really a great way to go.
So in that sense, are you sort of assigned a few kids and they know to go to you?
No,
No.
it's whoever is in. So in relationships, right? Anytime you need support, you always have your people who are in your room, like the people who are closest to you. So I've got 3 people here. We're all playing. She thinks that this doll is hers, but I'm pretty sure it's mine, right?
Mhm.
Like, then since there's 3 of us here, we'll call on that third person first because we're in our immediate space. If you can't work it out there, you call on someone in the room. If you can't work it out with that support of people in the room, and maybe you need a facilitator or someone potentially older, you grab either someone older that you would trust or a facilitator to come in at that point. But yeah, definitely it's just whoever's available. That's also the safety net that we're setting in for having the different age spans, right? We've got a 5-year-old and a 17-year-old all in free space.
Mhm.
And you have to absolutely be sure that that 5-year-old is empowered to be 100% safe at all times, right? So no matter what happens in that scaffolding of humans that they're surrounded by, they always can like reach out for immediate help and support in any situation.
I'm trying to understand how you make sure that you're not facilitating your own child. Is it that they know not to come to you, or you know not to
If it's
involve
something
yourself?
that I think it's just something that if it's sensitive, something that you're kind of like about, you just tell them to go find someone else.
Okay, so it's that simple. It's not like a rule. It's just like, I think you should go ask him.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Or somebody's standing at the microwave, they're going to have to wait in line anyway. And you just say, oh, yeah, so and so can help you with that. It's really simple. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So you are passionate about being involved and not doing something else while your child is doing this. I mean, you've been doing this for a while, right?
So I have, but actually, even though this is like 100% my passion, I actually don't, I want to help other families do the same thing. Like the day to day of being in with the kids is actually not a huge, like I feel like I need to be there and like go visit and take everybody to, do like an offering here and there. But like I am a horrible timekeeper. So if I set an offering, I'm like, oh, we're going on a walk to town at 1. Like, oh my gosh, those poor children, right? Like somebody else has to timekeep for me because
Mm.
it's just like not a skill set that I have. So there's a few things that it's just not I do all of the conflict resolution because that's something that I'm definitely passionate about and I am pretty good about it. And I will keep time for that because it's like I absurdly care about it. So yeah, it's kind of a sprinkling of really, I want to be teaching the parents how to facilitate this in their lives. And yeah, so I'm a little bit of everything.
Yeah. So you kind of, would this be fair? You kind of like created this thing that now you understand how it works and you can kind of use that as a reference, but it's not what you're meant to do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not really a day-to-day person on anything. I'm like start the fire and then leave it to the tenders and then go start the next fire. It's kind of what I do.
I like
So yeah, it's nice to know that because I've often, when I was younger, I was like, oh my gosh, why am I so bad at this? Like I was so good at this in the beginning, and now I just have lost all of my flair for it. And really, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I can still do it, but I'm just ready to like start the next fire.
Yeah, yeah. So, can you talk a little bit about the podcast that you're going to be doing?
Yeah. So my husband has been in on radio and done all this professional like podcast radio. He's starting to do some TV and
Cool.
voiceovers and all these things, right? And he's had several podcasts. So I needed a way that, as I've been brainstorming this for so long, I'm like, okay, people need support along the way. You have to have somewhere to check in. And I need a way to like disseminate the information and also have, we'll probably do Zoom calls that will be recorded on the podcast and different things like that. Like we need Q&As every week, multiple times a week, probably. And we just need to kind of help people along in the process. So my husband is here every day. He works from home and I also do a lot of writing. So he's like, well, just write yourself a script and we'll just put it together in a podcast. And then also we can, do Q&As and all the different things. So yeah, we are starting the Unschool Show. So that will be coming out.
Cool.
Yeah, coming out in tandem with the launch. So that'll be fun.
That's exciting. The
Mhm.
first real exposure I had to unschooling was through a podcast that was kind of like a limited series called The Unschooling Life.
Oh, nice.
But each episode was kind of like, what about this? And what, like, what about reading? What about math? What about TV? What about?
Right. I basically get the same few questions. I'm answering the same question just over and over and over and over. And every single person has the whole set of questions, right? Like it's always the same. So answering those is super vital. And then really the answer is kind of the same every time, right? Like this is how they read, and it's just the same answer every time.
Yeah.
This is how they learn math, same answer. This is how they go to college, same answer. So so yeah, that'll be nice to be able to, once it's there and you can just go to it and hear that, it will be much more accessible, because it's hard for me to answer all the questions for all the people. So now it will just be available.
Yeah. Please see episode.
Yeah. Right. This is what to listen to first. Mm-hmm.
I have a question on that note, actually, is do you run into this issue in your community where parents have certain objections to certain activities for their children? And so you have to kind of navigate around that. Do you have a policy about not navigating around that? Like, how do you do that?
So that's something that is always in conversation with the staff and the parents, right? But basically, we're a self-directed community.
Mhm.
So we will be there to mention, like, the agreement that we will agree to is we're more than willing to remind people of what their parents have going on,
Mhm.
but we're uninterested in enforcing that.
Mhm.
So I'll be like, hey, you have your new retainer on. Remember that you were gonna brush that after lunch, but I'm not, that's as far as it'll go. Nothing else.
Gotcha.
So yeah. And that's on every level, right? So that's as far as it goes. And just have to be in conversation about that. And if they want, agreements that parents have with their kids is their agreement,
Yeah.
same as anything else. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. I like that. How do you get your kids to brush their teeth, Emily?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you how. I got my kid an Invisalign because he didn't want to have his braces tightened every 6 weeks. So I was like, this is kind of an important thing. You gotta like really keep the bacteria out of there, because it's like basically a cup for bacteria to sit in, right?
Yeah.
And it was worth it. It's worth it to them.
Ah.
So we actually have really, really crappy teeth in our family. So
Mm.
we've never had a problem with, like, if there's anything that they can do to avoid annoying dental visits, they do it. And they've always been really good at that. But basically, that's the same thing as anything, right? Is the value versus the need.
Mhm.
You just talk about the value that it is. And then there's a few things like how to get them to unload the dishwasher, which is a little bit different. And I really, I don't know how I came up with this. Again, it's like I clocked my 10,000 hours before I ever had a child, so I just know stuff. But I feel like I'm their portal into this world, and I have to meet their basic needs of like food, shelter, water, warmth, rest, and that's kind of all.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I'll provide those. And then everything that's on top of those, we can do as an agreement.
Hmm.
So if you're interested in being provided sugary foods, then you'll need to be in agreement with me that we brush our teeth.
Hmm.
So, because food, right? Like I can provide you foods without sugar, and then I will protect your teeth. So if you're going to leave it to me to protect your teeth, then I'm going to give you only the foods that will protect your teeth. But if you can make an agreement to just pop in and brush your teeth after your candy bar, then I'll also provide you with the candy bar.
Hmm.
So yeah, it comes down to like really the base level. Like this is what I'm providing you. And then anything above and beyond that, we can do it on agreement basis. So
I like that.
yeah, you can have like one dish and one meal. There's a really basic thing. And if you always bring it back to like, we don't have to be doing any of this. We can just be at the base level. And a really wonderful example that happened with me to affirm that was my youngest, who's 12 now. Gosh, he had to be only less than 5, but we were really having a hard time keeping his room clean, right? And he was just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. It's too much. And one day I heard him say that, and I was like, oh, it's too much. And he was like, yes, it's too much. I can't put all of this stuff away. And I was like, is it too much at all? Like, do you just not want all this stuff? And he was like, no, I don't want any of this stuff. There's like 3 items here that I want. And it turns out I had been like, well, you need this and you need that and you need the other thing. And grandma was saying that and grandpa was saying it, and dad was saying it. And he was like all clumped up with all these things. And really, he didn't need any of that. He just wanted like literally 3 items, and he was good. And guess what? He could manage those 3 items perfectly. So it's always an agreement, right? Like, okay, if you have 500 items, what's our agreement going to be about that? Because we can find an agreement if it's of value to you. And if it's not of value to you, I have this giant black garbage bag that I am more than willing to pop it in there and just take it to Goodwill.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My 6-year-old says it's too much work to clean up his room, but he also doesn't want to get rid of anything.
Yeah. So I just always say, if it's valuable to you, then it also has to be valuable to you to navigate it. And if you make it have to be my value, then I'm going to make it my value. So if I have to pick those items up, I'm going to pick them up and put them in the trash. That's what, if I have to care about them, that's my care. So you can care about them your way, or I can care about them my way.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's very basic. 5-year-olds can do it in a heartbeat.
Love it.
And then we do a lot of visible feedback so that it's not, once you get practice at it, you just do it naturally. But at the beginning, everyth's written on a Post-it note, and you actually check in once a week to see how that's going, so that you're trying a lot of different things. So you don't end up just being like, if it's going to be my values, then it's going to be my values. And you just go in there and sweep all their stuff up, right? And crush them. Right. So it's not like that. We brainstorm, we talk about what the values are. These are your values. These are my values. What do we think would be a good place to meet both of those? And then we just try something out for only one single week.
Right.
So we got 7 days. Is nobody going to cry about this plan? Yes. Okay, we'll try it. And then we're going to check in the next week and see if that worked or didn't work. Yeah. So in that case, if you're like, okay, well, we're going to do my values, and so we're putting everything in a black garbage bag, the garbage bag can sit around for 1 week, right? Until they decide like, okay, I'm not really happy with that. I actually cared about that more than I thought. I want all those things back. And now I'm going to invest in them a little more. And so it's just a process of like building and building and building until you get something that works for everybody.
Yes. I remember this from our last podcast, I think.
Yeah. It's a pretty foundational, it works with our homes, and it's how we build our intentional culture, right? That's how we do our culture of like, I don't want someone screaming in this room, but I really want to scream in this room. Like everything is that back and forth to find out what's gonna meet everyone's needs and values.
I decided yesterday I wasn't going to mediate my son's arguments anymore.
It's a good one.
It's a pattern, because I had to mediate my parents' arguments growing up. I didn't have to, but I guess that's sort of like what I became. So I realized it was kind of a habit for me. And so yesterday I was like, I'm just going to let you scream at each other. And so the one time it was like, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And it was like, rah, 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 and then it was over.
It's over.
And then the second time it happened, it was like in front of me while I was trying to communicate with them. And I was like, I need you to hear what I'm saying right now. You can finish this later.
Pause. I'm going to speak and then I'm going to walk away. Nice.
So, but it really is. And what I love about talking to you too is that you realize that it really is so much easier than you've been making it. I think we really try to overcomplicate parenting.
Yeah, because it's really not our responsibility, right? But we do know that they need things. And so if we can just help them to verbalize and identify their needs, and, because that's, I think, the thing that we really facilitate well in is like, I know that you need to have these boots on. Your little toes are going to be blue at the end of this walk, right? Like we understand their needs, but they don't. So it's really wonderful. And it brings that magic back to be able to facilitate instead of forcing them to wear their boots, right? Like now we're just bringing up like, baby, I'm going to be so sad when your toes are turning blue. And do you want to wear Band-Aids on them for the next week? And what if I have to take you to the doctor? Like, this is going to be so sad. So then they're like, oh gosh, she really cares about me. Like, I'm going to put these boots on, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, just put your boots on, get outside. So it's just a whole different thing of that. It's deepening relationship instead of really tearing it apart is what it ends up doing.
Yeah. I remember when I had my first child, it took me, actually it was even before that. No, I think it was after I had him, as I realized I was like, oh, it was like around when he turned 2, because they start to have like an actual will. And I was like, if I want him to do the things that I want, I'm either going to have to earn his respect or he's going to have to fear me. I really don't want him to fear me.
Right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty brilliant, like to come to when he was only 2. That's
yeah, I mean, it takes a while to, figure out how you do that. And not just to like get him to do things I want him to do, but more that was how I verbalized it at the time. But the way that you're putting it makes a lot more sense is,
Yeah, you're going to have to throw down and be like, this is what you have to do because I said so. Like in essence, it just comes down to because I said so. As opposed to really, we don't care. Like, I don't care if you wear your boots outside or not, actually, but I do care that I'm going to have to take care of your feet for the next 2 weeks if you do. Right. So that's, where I always said my main parenting, I only have one parenting rule, and that is self-preservation. And yeah, because right, like put your own oxygen mask on first. So I'm just like, if you just roll with that, and then you teach them, like basically what we're bringing forward to them is how they can self-preserve as well. If you value all of these toys, and there's so many of them, like let's figure out a way that you can hold those values and that it can work for you and for everyone else. Like that's a phenomenal practice. And really that's all you need to live an independent life. One singular skill.
That's a brilliant note to conclude on, I think. Would you like to share with everyone how they can get in touch with you and start listening to your podcast and all that?
Oh yeah, we're launching January 16th. So the podcast will be the Unschooling Show. And gosh, we haven't even got it launched yet. So I guess look in all the podcast places.
Yeah, well, by the time this releases, it will be out. So
yeah. Yeah, so it's the Unschooling Show. Check that out by Emily Quandt. And then I love hearing from people individually. So anyone can feel free to email me, emily@emilyquandt.com. The Quandt has a silent D in it. And then also, if you are looking for support or want to join the system, we can also do that. We have a Patreon. So it's patreon.com/EmilyQuandt. And that's me.
Ooh, can you explain what people get when they sign up for your Patreon and how
there's a few levels. Basically, if somebody is just learning and not quite ready to really launch into the whole community building thing, but they just want to observe, we've kind of broken it down so that you can get the levels of support without having to dive in the whole way. So
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. All right. Well, thank you, Emily.
Thanks
And
for having me.
thank y'all for joining us. If you have questions or feedback about this episode, feel free to comment, rate. Also, you can send me an email, inspiredartistpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks
Thank you.
for tuning into the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.